Introducing NASM One, NASM's ultimate membership program. Unlock access to everything your fitness career needs to succeed. Unlimited CEUs, free courses, access to our premium app, and exclusive discounts, all for $35 a month. NASM One is best-in-class tools, cutting-edge certifications, confidence in your craft, and everything you do as a personal trainer made easy, so we can achieve our greatest goals together as one.
You're listening to the Peak Physique Podcast with Andre Adams on the NASM Podcast Network.
Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Peak Physique Podcast. I'm your host, Andre Adams, IFBB professional bodybuilding athlete, also an NASM master trainer. And today we've got a special episode for all you fitness competitors. And when I say fitness, we're talking specifically about the women's fitness division in the NPC IFBB. And today we've got a very special guest I'd like to welcome to the show, Miss Taylor Learmont. Welcome, Taylor.
Hi, how are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Great. Thanks for joining us and taking time out of your day. I know you've always got some intense training going on. For you guys that are new to Taylor actually just burst onto the scene. Really last year, I think, was your breakout year, catapulting yourself all the way to number 2 in the world. And I think if I remember correctly, looking at the scorecards, there was like a point separating you from, the women's fitness GOAT, Oksana Grishina. So insane performance. Absolutely loved it. Your fitness routine was incredible. And we're going to break some of these topics and strategies down for our following. So I'm excited to pick your brain a little bit today, Taylor.
I'm excited just to be here. So thanks so much.
Yeah. Some of the things I want to dig into on this episode, and you and I chatted, I think, at the Olympia, actually at our NASM booth. I want to go a little deeper on some of the training strategies, what things can people that are maybe interested or actively competing in women's fitness incorporate into their training, and then breaking that apart. What does that even look like, right? The difference between the skill training versus, muscular development and physique training, and how do we blend those two things together? Because they're kind of contradictory at times.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be, just very incredible for people to hear what things have worked well for you. And then we'll talk about what strategies that, you're employing for your Olympia prep this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's start high level. Let's, for those that are new to maybe competing or new to the division, let's maybe break down what is the women's fitness division. A lot of people that don't understand the sport maybe confuse it with figure because they see the posing rounds and they're not quite sure what the differences are. In my opinion, I think it's one of the most incredible divisions and categories within bodybuilding for just what we talked about, right? You're having to do something that's counterintuitive, where we're peaking out a physique, and also at the same time, we're trying to maximize performance, which aren't always synergistic. They're kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum. So,
absolutely.
And now, Taylor, let's kind of talk about, let's share what the distinctions of women's fitness compared to, like, let's just use figure as an example, differences in the divisions, posing rounds, fitness rounds, etc.
Yeah, so it's similar in the fact that, like, it looks like you said, like that pre-judge round looks very similar in terms of we have our posing, we have our quarter turns and everything like that. And that is worth 30%, which is like the major difference, because obviously with figure, it's worth 100%. And then in the evening for finals, instead of going out and posing again, we actually go out and do a 2-minute routine that's full of all like those acro tricks, dance moves, everything like that. And so that routine is kind of like where we get to showcase our creativity and like where we specialize in. So in terms of like actual mandatory moves that we need to do a strength hold, a high kick, a split, and then a push-up. If you have those 4 things, you can compete in fitness. So when you see all the additive, like bigger dance moves or tumble lines or handstand tricks, that's just you're seeing their athlete and what they specialize in and what they can really showcase to make the routine their own. And it's that creativity part, that showcase part, that really sets the routine part up different and kind of like makes that final score, because that's worth the 70%. So that's the part that I'm most passionate about and the part that I love to do. And so I specialize heavily in that routine round. And then because I'm newer to bodybuilding, the first like pre-judge round is where I'm learning to, slowly get better, get a little bit bigger, and naturally just build my body to be a little bit more figure shaped and figure like aesthetic looking.
Right. And that's the challenge. I mean, and I think you're playing that game correctly, right? Since roughly 2/3 of your score is on the fitness performance routine, it makes a lot more sense to invest more of your time there, right? Because you could technically do okay in the, let's say you place top 5 in the actual figure round or the physique round
Mhm.
versus claiming a 1 or 2 spot at the performance and the finals routine, and you could still actually win the show.
Absolutely.
In fact,
Like
Oksana's done that.
11
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
Olympia this year. I was tied for 12th actually
Yep.
for the posing round, which was totally expected. I
Yeah.
wasn't expected to do really well on that one just because I am so brand new. And
Mhm.
then routine round, that's where I was really aiming to perform my best performance. I'm never going to say that I'm chasing for number one. I just
Right.
wanted to go out there and do a routine that I was really proud of. And my routine came first by a good margin. And that's why when it came to the results, when they combined the scores with the percentages, I was able to come second for my
Mhm.
performance.
Yeah, it was incredible. In fact, I think the first time that I saw you, Taylor, I believe it was at Legion Sports Festival, if I
Yes, that
remember
was my
correctly.
pro debut.
That's what I thought, and I was there actually with, Cass Gillis, and we were there doing a seminar, but I remember seeing you and thinking, like, this was before they announced the winners. Right away, like, you stood out like a sore thumb. I'm like, "That girl's gonna win this show, and she's gonna be, like, top 5 at the Olympia." And
Oh,
sure
that's
enough,
crazy.
you didn't disappoint because 'cause I've been doing this a long time, and, you can recognize talent, so kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
Like you said, as the physique comes up, and we're going to talk about some of those strategies on developing the physique side and how to balance that with your performance side. But as that physique comes up, you're definitely going to be in that top mix. So, excellent story there. Guys, if you're just joining us, this is the NASM Peak Physique Podcast. I'm your host, Andre Adams, and I'm here breaking down the pro women's fitness division with my good friend, Taylor Learmont, number 2 Olympian in the world. And we're trying to make that number 1, right, Taylor?
Yes, that is the goal.
That's always the goal. So I have full confidence you can get there. Taylor, let's talk a little bit about how you got started. This can be on the skill side, this could be on
Mhm.
the physique side. What things did you do, initially? Did you have a background growing up in, gymnastics or any kind of acrobatics? And what brought you to the division?
Yeah, so I have I have a gymnastics background. I did that like heavily as a young kid from basically like kindergarten to high school. And then high school I danced for 4 years and then in university I did cheerleading. And so that's kind of like my acrobatic background and where I pull a lot of my tricks. So I have the acrobatic tumbling, the aesthetics of the flow from the dance and then a lot of the big smile performance aspect from cheerleading. And I got into bodybuilding funny enough because of an Instagram giveaway. Back in
Okay.
2019, I entered one with Whitney Jones. She was hosting one at the time. And someone had sent it to me, one of my followers, being like, I don't know if you've ever heard of bodybuilding, but you should try this. This is like right up your alley. And in my head, I was like, I never win giveaways. So I'm just going to enter and see what happens. And so I entered. She gave me a free prep. She prepped me for my regional show and then my national show. And she got me my pro card. We won it right
Yeah.
off the bat. And then that's kind of like my little entry into bodybuilding. I took a small little break because after 2019, I didn't come back just because for me, I was really intimidated because I knew I was such a small athlete and I was looking at all these people who were going to Olympia and everything. And I was like, I will never
Hmm.
make it there. Like I look so tiny. And so I was really discouraged and I was like, let me just go do calisthenics, do my own thing. I'll come back to bodybuilding when I've been in the gym a little bit longer. And it was
Hmm.
actually Jody Boom, who's like my current coach, who DM me again and was like, hey, like you have your pro card, but you haven't done a debut. Like, would you be interested in trying it? And I was at a point in my life where I wanted a little bit more of a challenge. And I was like, sure, like, let's just do it. See if I can really be dedicated and really just kind of find my footing in this new world. And, we had an amazing season. My pro debut won and then Olympia came second. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like how I got into the sport. And so I definitely did not have a background at all in like into just general bodybuilding. I knew it was really hard with diet and the exercise, but I knew because of the routine portion, I was like, that's the part that I'm going to really like. And it gives me that
Yep.
sense of competing again. So for anyone who's like a gymnast, dancer, cheerleader, whichever, if you're looking for something that gives you that competitive feeling, that's why I really like bodybuilding because I have this area that I can relate to and then an area that I know I can improve in, which is the physique round.
Yeah, and it's that same mindset, right? With bodybuilding, what I love about it as we're sculpting the physique, it's that same discipline, that same consistency, self-esteem, confidence, right? We do the work and we can see the results, and we can mirror other aspects of life or other sports like gymnastics with that same set of principles. So definitely complimentary. I love that you have that background, because that's going to open up so many different things for you down the road. And, one thing I always like to ask people too is, when you were starting out, or even now as one of the best in the world, who inspired you? Other people in the sport, maybe it was someone in your family. Who inspires you to do better and, become one of the best in the world?
It's funny because I get this question a lot, like, where do I get my motivation and inspiration from? It's literally from everyone that I get to like see on a daily basis. So it's my friend group, fellow competitors in the area, like just being able to work and train with people who I know are also striving to be the best in whatever discipline they're in. I find that really motivating. So a lot of my friends that I train my skill work in, I see them accomplish their amazing things. And I'm like, oh, I'm so inspired to accomplish my things too. Or even being able to be coached by Jody, who's local in Hamilton. I see, like, right now she's prepping for Arnold's, and I'm motivated to stay on top of my stuff during off season, just because I'm like, I see her doing what she's doing. And it's just very motivating to see people just being their best selves.
Yeah. And I love that, right? I mean, you can draw inspiration from many different things, but when you're able to draw it from the people around you that are in your life daily, that's even better, because it's a daily reminder, right? To keep going, keep
Yeah.
pushing a little harder. So,
Especially because you see them, right?
yeah,
Like every single week I train with my friends like 2-3 times a week. So if I show up and I'm not keeping up with them, or I'm not achieving
yeah.
my goals, I'm like, okay, well, they are. So like I gotta stay motivated, gotta stay dedicated.
Accountability partners all the way.
Yeah.
That's right. That's good. And then thinking about balancing like your skill training with physique development, it brings back memories of kind of when I started out. I was in many different sports, but powerlifting was my like main sport when I started, migrating more towards bodybuilding and physique. But I was also doing a lot of boxing and kickboxing, so a bit of MMA training. And I was very intentional about doing those things to keep my body very functional. Even basketball, I used to play pickup games 3 or 4 days a week, and it was sometimes challenging. I remember when I was seriously going for boxing, I was also competing at the same time. So it's like I'm trying to hold the muscle size and density and fullness over here, but then at the same time, I'm trying to, get in like fight condition to make sure that, my cardiovascular condition, everything is up to speed. So I remember, coming to boxing, and maybe I just had shoulders the day before and my arms would fatigue, or,
Yeah.
my legs would fatigue from having a hard leg day. And I think that's something that I'd love to hear from your perspective as you're balancing that dichotomy of the physique training with the skill training. Does that ever factor into, you have to be more strategic when, what day you hit legs, what day you do this specific skill training, and so on?
Oh, absolutely. Because I am a smaller athlete, Jody has me in a good off season right now. So my workouts, I'm always pushing to be in my growth season. So I definitely cannot do skill training like within 1 to 2 days of doing legs. I do have to plan it around, especially when I'm trying to do my explosive movements and everything. Like if I try to do leg day and then the day after try to do a standing full or back tuck, I just know it's not going to be the best. So I am very aware of like what my schedule looks like and where I can place my workouts in order to make the best out of my strength workouts and my like skill training. So I work out 5 days a week, and then within that I have like one full rest day, and then I have a day of like hybrid like skill training / rest. So one of those I go to like my gymnastics gym and I do that stuff. And then I usually pair another type of handstand day with my shoulder day. So it's like a shoulder plus skill work day. The
Hmm.
reason being is because on that day specifically, I'm not working new skills. I'm working ones that I've already mastered. And so I want to make sure that if I can do these skills on repeat when I'm fatigued after a shoulder workout, I know that if I put those skills in my routine, I feel confident that my endurance is there, and that even when I'm like dead tired after a workout, if I'm hitting those, I'm like, okay, this is a good training session. I can put this into my routine. I feel good about it. So
Yep.
I do one skill training day that's like new stuff where I'm like completely fresh. And then I do one that's meant for conditioning for a future routine.
Yeah, that again, it sounds very similar to how I used to approach like MMA or boxing. I'm glad you hit on that point, Taylor, because it's important for people that are new to the sport, or if you're just trying to learn a new skill in general. You don't want to come in when you have, something that's limiting your performance, and then you start to learn a bad skill, right? Where
Bad
for
habits.
me, yeah, bad habits, exactly, where your form might be off because of, some physical limitation or a really hard workout prior. For me, it used to be, if I'm learning a new combination or a new punch or a new technique, if I'm already fatigued and it's, changing my form a bit, I don't want that to become part of my muscle memory. You want to do those
Yeah.
new skills fresh,
You want
right?
perfect practice, not just practice.
Yes, exactly. And it's important because a lot of people aren't aware of that. The other thing you hit on that I really appreciate is mimicking, a depleted state, like when we're on stage, and for you guys, even more important in the, women's fitness division. But when we're on stage, we're not fresh, right? We are
Yeah.
depleted. We're low on carbohydrates oftentimes, right? Low on water, et cetera. So, just trying to make sure that, if you can hit it in this kind of depleted state where you're not at 100%, you should be good to go when you're actually on stage hitting that routine.
Yeah, exactly. And that accounted to a lot of my routine practice going into both competitions. I know when I was competing in Reno, I would actually recreate doing my routine based off the time zone I was going to be in. Because if I
Mhm.
did it 3:00 EST, it feels very different than 3:00 PST for me. So I would actually practice it 3 hours later in the evening when I knew my energy levels were going to be a lot lower. And so I
Mhm.
wanted to mimic competition setting as much as I could. Because again, if you can do it comfortably in that kind of setting where you have a lot of things controlled, then when you go to do it in a setting like competing, you feel a little bit more confident going into it.
100%. I love that mindset. And again, it's working, smarter, not necessarily harder, just getting more strategic with the way that we train. One thing I'd like to ask you, in terms of your training, are there any extra things that you incorporate? Maybe it's not necessarily a skill and it's not strength training. It could be extra stabilization for the shoulders or the knees, soft tissue work, mobility work. Are there other things that complement your training that you commonly add in?
I always make sure that my training is really fun. I think that's the main thing. So I don't make my skill training super organized because my strength training is super organized. So I want to make sure that I'm still having fun with my workouts because with bodybuilding, it is so regimented that I think if you just make everything super strict, you become a little bit overwhelmed. So I always want some type of fun factor in there in terms of just keeping my body right. Because obviously, as you are prepping and stuff like that, your body feels more tired, you're more prone to injuries, stuff like that. I do get soft tissue work done every 4 weeks with a sports massage therapist. And then I see my chiropractor on a weekly basis just to fine tune everything. I'm very much the kind of person where I want to make sure everything is like basically maintained. And I don't want to wait until something feels injured and then try to fix it. I'd rather be in a position of like a slight injury and then I can fix it right away versus just letting it build. And then I'm kind of in a spot where I'm like, oh, shoot, I might have to re-choreograph something or I might have to change something.
Yeah, exactly. You got to have that constant feedback loop. Otherwise, like you said, those things lead to, small things that add up, right? You might have some muscle imbalances that lead to
Mhm.
injuries, down the road. We saw way too many injuries at this past Olympia with some of the great champions like Whitney and,
Missy.
Missy Truscott, right? Very sad to see that, but, it's part of our sport, unfortunately. So hopefully they're recovering well.
Yeah, I think they're both doing well. I talked to both of them recently, and I know they're in better spirits now, and they're on the road to recovery. And I'm super excited to see them both back on stage, which will be really great to see after their Olympia this year to see their comebacks coming up.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see that. Guys, if you're just joining us, this is the Peak Physique Podcast. I'm your host, Andre Adams, and I'm here with my good friend, Taylor Learmont, and we're chopping it up on everything women's fitness related. Taylor, I think your middle name should be Fun because every time I see you make posts, you are having fun, and I love it.
I am.
Same
I
thing.
really am.
Yeah, I'm the same way. When you see me in the gym or you see me training athletes, it's always all smiles, all fun, and that's going to keep you in the sport, doing your thing for many, many years to come. Let's talk about the training regimen. We talked a little bit, we touched on your skill training split. And if we broke down your whole week, you know, what things have worked the best for you? And I'm sure you're still learning and trying different things throughout your prep. And are there differences in your off season or improvement phase, like now versus the on season, in terms of you have, let's say, 3 skill days a week and, 5 training days a week. What does that look like for you in the on season?
During prep, I would say it's relatively the same strength wise. Like I'm still doing around 5 days of strength training. And then I have 2 days, technically, like one rest day and then another, like again, like that hybrid day. However, when I'm in season, I run my routine every day. That one is huge because for me, because of my background in gymnastics, I feel more calm and confident going into a competition if I know I've hit my routine X number of times going into it. I kind of touched on it one time in one of my YouTube videos of just saying that like when I first began, I was hitting my routine 50%, then it was 60%, 70%, 80%. And by the end, approaching Olympia, I knew I was like, I'm hitting my routine 95% of the time the way I want to hit it. And so going into that, I just felt very confident. So in season for me is very routine driven. And so I don't work a lot of things outside of my routine. If I do skill work, it's only the things in the routine. So I want to save my energy and build that confidence rather than try to like mix things up and, potentially injure myself, but also just, lower my confidence just because if I try something new and I don't get it, it kind of would shake me a little bit being like, what does that mean? It's going to translate into my routine. Like, does that mean I'm not going to hit it there? So I like to just stick to things that are there in my routine that I know I'm going to be competing on the day of my competition.
Got it. So the repetition, right? Just making it more autonomous where you don't have that hindrance of having to think about every move and what comes next. And, we talk about that a lot with, our classic physique and bodybuilding routines, not quite as crazy as what you guys have to do, but definitely a lot of different movements and steps and transitions to remember. And it's the same thing for me. I usually start crafting those routines very far out. I even start mine either at the beginning of prep. Sometimes, even in the off season, we'll still go through different drills and things just to make sure that the movements and transitions stay fluid. And then the closer we get to the show, maybe it's 3 times a week, then 5 times a week, then it's daily, so that you can hit that routine in your sleep. And if you happen to misstep or you goof something up, it's very easy to keep going without the crowd even noticing, right?
Yeah, you want to make it like it's second nature when you're out there. You don't want to have to worry about the small things because you're already kind of like your anxiety's heightened because you're going to be on stage. So you just want it to be like butter, nice and smooth.
Yeah, exactly. Bruce Lee said like water, right? So you want it to
You want
flow.
to just flow like water.
That's right. I love it. Taylor, how do from a coaching standpoint, and is it just Jody, or do you have like different coaches for nutrition or physique or the fitness skills?
Jody's primarily, she's my girl. She's one of the best. I'm so happy to get to work with her. I work with Jody. She does my nutrition, my workouts, all my check-ins, stuff like that. And in terms of routine, she also helps choreograph the routine. I do also work with my friend Mo, who's like, she performs for the Toronto Raptors. She's like a choreographer dancer. So she's really great. And she's able to help me pick out songs that match my personality. And then she's also able to help create these more flowing routines because she knows performance because of what she does, because she performs all the time. And then she also has a dance background, so she knows tricks and stuff and transitions. So it's really nice to work with her and then kind of have Jody fine tune it where she's like, this would look really great in a fitness routine versus what you're doing is more of a dance routine. So she can tweak it towards the end.
Got you. So just kind of blending those two things up and, marrying them together to give you the, a little bit of an edge on the fitness routine. And, when you're looking at different skills, what skills would you like to learn moving forward? I know I was always a fan of watching Oksana. I felt like every few months she was picking up some crazy skill that I had never seen before. And I'm always curious, like, what types of skills interest you the most? And, where do you go for coaching with some of those new skills?
A lot of them. So I pull a lot of my skills that I want to learn or transitions that I want to learn just from like seeing things on Instagram and like maybe it's not that exact transition, but it's something that I know that I could do something else that looks similar, which is really cool. And so a lot of my skill work comes from myself, but I still also visit my like home club gymnastics club, Chandray Gymnastics out of my area. And one of my coaches there helps me with like just perfecting my technique with a lot of my tumbling skills. So anything new that I want to learn that's like a little bit more tumble based or technique based, I definitely go there and they help me out. And then otherwise it's just like kind of playing around with my own drills that kind of master a new combination of some type.
Okay. I think another important thing for us to touch on is injury prevention and workarounds, because as you and I kind of alluded to earlier, that's always, a risk in a high performance division such as women's fitness. One thing that I'll point out too for our followers is, if there's scenarios where, an athlete is on any kind of exogenous hormones or DHT derivatives, those do have a tendency to dry out joints, ligaments, and soft tissue, tendons. So I do tend to see more injuries related to soft tissue in those scenarios. So just things that, people, coaches, and athletes should be mindful of as they're prepping. But I love that you're getting preventative maintenance, right? You're doing things with, some soft tissue work. I always Loved having chiropractic work. Usually I'd do it bi-weekly. I'd get some Groston scraping and cupping done, and just keep your body functioning and feeling good so that you don't, have these small injuries that turn into bigger injuries down the road.
Yeah, exactly. So I do all that stuff. And then I also do a lot of stretching because obviously after my workouts, I do know I'm quite sore. So before I would do like a good warm up and cool down, and then I wouldn't really stretch in between my sessions just because I'm naturally more of a flexible person. But now, because I am feeling a little bit stiffer here and there, I make sure to do like 2 to 3 really good stretching sessions a week where I'm like spending like 25, 30 minutes, like focused on one area. So like right now I find that my legs get really sore. So I definitely put a lot of like TLC towards those areas, just because with my mobility that I post on my Instagram, with a lot of like the jumps and tricks and everything, I want to make sure that I'm still able to maintain. And even though my physique is going to get better, I don't want it to hinder the stuff that I love and what my Instagram is made out of, and like the part of bodybuilding that I love. So I want to make sure that I stay nice and mobile through everything.
Yeah, I think mobility is definitely going to be top of mind for you. And that's going to be the challenge, right? As you continue to develop the physique and put on more skeletal muscle, the natural tendency is, right, as we break down muscle tissue and we repair it back and it comes back stronger, right, we start to develop a bit of scar tissue and muscle adhesions. That's just part of the process. And so making sure that we work those issues out and continue to keep your body flexible, good mobility, all that stuff's going to help you stay as functional as possible, especially for your specific division.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Taylor, another thing that I think everyone on this planet wants to know in terms of the fitness division is, what is the difference if we looked at figure versus fitness in a peak week type of strategy? Just high
Oh,
level, because, if you were, let's put bodybuilding aside. If you were only doing your fitness routine and that was 100% of your score, your peak week would look pretty different.
very different. I'd be able to eat freely, that's for sure.
Yeah, we would carb load you for probably 3 days straight.
Yeah, and have all the energy on stage. That's definitely.
Exactly. So let's talk about how, what does that normally look like, and then how are we balancing those, and then areas that athletes can look to optimize, to get enough performance out and then still come in tight enough and full enough for the physique round as well.
Yeah. So I've only done 2 peak weeks in my entire life because when I turned pro, they didn't have the physique round for me. It was just 100% routine. So comparing the two, definitely I was able to eat a lot more when there was no physique in it, but now as a pro, there obviously is. So I have to water load. I think it's like, if I competed on like Saturday, I would water load on like Thursday, I'm pretty sure. And that's like where I'm drinking 9 liters of water. And then I would actually eat a little bit more on the Thursday, Friday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday in the morning, it would be like very minimal. I think I had like 1 chicken meal or something like that in the morning. And then I kind of, stayed lean for the morning. And then for the afternoon, we would eat a little bit more. Everything's still really clean though. In terms of just like things to like look out for, I guess that is different than say a figure athlete, is I think I do get fed more because I never like eliminate carbs. It's lower for sure, but it's never like no carbs or no fats. Like I still get to eat like, I think it was like 10 almonds or something like that. And I still got to have, I think it was 30 grams of oats and then my 90 grams of protein. So my protein always stayed the same during peak week. It's just the other amounts kind of dwindled down, but never to zero for me.
Exactly. I agree with that strategy. You still want to have definitely a more traditional peak week, right? Early in the week. Maybe you start to throttle back the carbs a little bit midweek, right? You're water loading, maybe manipulating a little sodium. Effectively, we're trying to increase our insulin sensitivity so that when we reintroduce the carbohydrates, let's say Thursday, Friday, heading into the show, insulin sensitivity is a bit higher. Your body's going to uptake that for 2 reasons for you, right? One is we want to replenish glycogen stores in the muscle for muscle fullness in the physique round. But more importantly for you, since it's 2/3 of your score, we want to make sure that your body is full of glucose or glycogen so that you can perform well and do those explosive movements on stage.
Yeah, because definitely before my routine, I know in Legions, Jody allowed me to have like a little bit of chocolate before.
Yep.
During Olympia, she kept it more clean. She's like, no, have your rice cakes and stuff like that. Don't have chocolate. So
Yeah.
we do get a little bit more right before our routine just to give us more energy because it is so demanding. And by the end of the day, like it's exhausting. You've done a morning pretty depleted, and then to do an entire routine where obviously, again, the adrenaline's super high, you finish and you're like, I'm dead. You need
Yep.
a refeed meal for sure.
Oh, definitely. That epic refeed meal. That's what
Yeah.
we all look forward to, especially post Olympia, because that's a big accomplishment. So
Oh yeah, that was like, I think for Olympia, I found a restaurant that was all you can eat pizza and pasta, and I was like,
yeah,
that's the one.
we got a winner. I
Yeah.
love it. I think my go-to has probably been sometime pizza. I know in Germany I had like there was one place open at the time. It was in Frankfurt, and I had like a full sheet pizza to myself, which I'm
Oh,
not recommending that to anyone. If you do, make sure you take some GDA or metformin or something, because you don't want to pack on, too much body fat post-show either. But you got to enjoy yourself a little bit.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Taylor, as we wrap up here, I want to leave the audience with some inspiration. What things keep you motivated? I know we touched on a little bit, sometimes your circle, but let's take 2024, right? Your big scary goals, trying to put on some size in that physique, take your fitness routine to even the next level, and hopefully bring home an Olympia win. What is inspiring you to keep pushing even harder and bring an even better package this year?
I think the main driving force behind my motivation, especially on the days that I don't want to be in the gym, is just, the haters. You know how like haters are my motivators? As cliche as that sounds, there was a lot of, not necessarily negativity, but there was some people who were a little bit shocked at my placing, and some of the comments that I read online were very harsh. And so I'm just taking that as like motivation to, I call it my prove it season, just to prove those people that like, yes, I am working hard. Yes, I understand my weak points. And even with my routine being one of my strong points, I'm still going to improve on that. So regardless of what people think of like, oh, she didn't work hard enough or she didn't deserve it, my main goal during this off season is to show that like I'm putting in work every single day and putting myself in a position where I can be better than this year.
Yeah.
And so, and I say that, and a lot of people go, oh, well, the only way you can be better than this year is to come first. And like, that's obviously a goal one day.
Yep.
I just want to be focused on being a better version of myself this year. So when I step on stage, I'm more confident. I look more fluid. I have a little more size to me. And then my routine round, as long as I perform a routine that I am really proud of, I know I'm going to be really happy with the results. And I have a lot of fun ideas for this year. So I think I'm excited to just prove it and just show people that I am a hardworking athlete. And even though I'm not your typical bodybuilder, I still really respect the sport, and I'm putting in as much work as everybody else.
I love it. I love the mindset, Taylor. And that's exactly what it's going to take, right? The haters, it's fuel. So we appreciate the haters the same as we appreciate the supporters. In fact, I would go as far as to say I almost appreciate the criticism more than the people that are gassing us up, because that's what makes us go back to the drawing board and come back even harder and keep pushing through on the days that we don't feel like pushing through. So that mindset is everything. And you touched on something that I'm going to leave our audience with. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you definitely have heard of the ain't done yet mindset, right? And that's the infinite mindset. So if we look at a finite minded person, that's somebody who's going to say, hey, I want to achieve first place. And that's their only goal, right? Versus the infinite minded person, that says every time I come out, I want to be a better version of myself, right? I want to elevate. And there's really not an end to that, right? It's a continuum. So definitely you're speaking my language. You've got the ain't done yet mindset all the way.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to see what you can do this year, Taylor.
Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, if you make it out to the Arnold, young lady, we're going to have to connect, and maybe we'll, record some physique training, and then maybe you can teach me a skill.
Yeah, I'll teach you a handstand.
That would be great. I'm actually pretty functional and athletic, and one thing I've never been great at is handstand. So I'm always down for a new challenge. Yeah. Let's plan on it. If we make it out there, I'll post something up for our audience to see.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Taylor, where can our NASM audience find you on social media, Instagram and YouTube? Let us know what your handles are there.
It's Little T Fitness across the board. So Little T Fitness on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, all that stuff. It's the same username. I make it nice and easy. And that's where you guys can find me. Perfect.
Well, you guys heard it here. If you have any questions for us, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to Taylor or myself. You guys already know you can find me on Instagram at AndreAdams_official, and send us your show suggestions to trainingbydre@gmail.com. If you guys got value out of this episode, I encourage you to share it with at least one friend, and we appreciate that support as always. Until next time, guys, we are signing off of the Peak Physique Podcast.